What's up, boys and girls? So in this video, I'm going to break down how I ran a 2:55:14 in my second marathon yesterday in Toronto. I'm going to quickly break down how I got into running, basically starting a year ago, then focus most of this video on how I did this whole race, from why I chose this specific marathon to my strategy going in, to my strategies and tips and all the little things that happened during the race that helped me do it, because this was not a guarantee. I was going into it with a goal of sub 3, but I definitely was not that positive I could do it. I wasn't 100% sure at all. I thought there was a good chance I would bomb and, do above 3 hours. And so the tips I did definitely, the things I did though, definitely helped me and are the reason I was able to do it. Basically, the timeline is this time last year, I was getting more into running, going out a few times a week. I was still pretty slow relatively compared to where I am now. I would go out for, an a 5 mile run at like an 8 minute pace, which would be like an 150, 160 heart rate. Like I was putting in effort. That was me running hard. So, it's comparative, but that's a lot slower than what I'm running now, which is in this marathon. I ran 2:55 at an average pace of 6:39 minutes per mile. So, big difference in a year. I got more and more into it over the year. In the fall, I started to go on some of my first long runs, like 8, 9, 10 miles. Those were really slow. I was like struggling on those. I never ran that far. And this was last fall. Like I said, I would go like 10-minute pace, 11-minute pace. I would be dying, but I'd get through these long miles. And then I signed up for my first marathon a month out, in end of October, and the marathon was December 3rd. So I trained for technically about a month or like 3 weeks. I didn't do much training, honestly. I think I did 50 miles the whole month of November. In October, I was like kind of hurt. The only big run I did before that marathon, to give context, I did one run at 16. I did one 18-mile run with 16 miles at a 7:30 pace. That was like my benchmark, because I don't know why I did that specific one, but for some reason I heard whatever you can run in the middle of training, so you're sore, you have other shit going on, you can run for a full marathon. That comes from Ryan Hall, who has the American record in the half marathon and the full marathon. And that was perfectly accurate for me. I ran a 7:30 in that big training. I ran a 7:30 for those 16 miles with a 2 mile warm up. And then I ran the same exact pace in my first marathon, 7:30, and I got a 3:16 in my first marathon. And that was when I really got addicted to running, because I was like, holy shit, I'm kind of gifted at this. For me to run that, I think I weighed 207 pounds that day. I just was so blown away at myself. Like I was like, holy shit, I need to go all in on this. And I did. I rested for a week and immediately signed up for the Austin Marathon, which I think was February 16th. I think that's what it was. And man, I was training hard. I set a goal of going at least under 3 hours, but then I progressed so quickly in my training. I went right into a full training block with a coach this time, Jonah Rosner Performance. Absolutely kept me dialed. I strongly recommend, if you're taking a marathon seriously, if you're going to train hard and you really care about getting a time, get a fucking coach. It is so worth it, because one, it's not that expensive, and two, they'll program all of your stuff so that all you have to do is wake up, press your watch, and the workout's on there, and it will keep you on track. It will tell you what to do, and you don't have to stress about what to do or doing it the day of. And you also get like a teammate to ask questions, and they're on the ride with you. I highly recommend it. Anyway, and so we went right into a full prep, getting up to like 50, 60 miles a week. And I was making insane progress, where, like I said, that first marathon, I did a 7:30 average pace, but I was putting down mid 6 minute paces on some long runs. And I think in that prep, my peak workout was a 20-mile workout. And I did an average pace of, I believe, 6:32 per mile. There was like some short rests in there because I had bathroom issues. But regardless, I had a really good long run. And so I was hyped going into Austin Marathon. I think I was going to try to go for like a sub 255, sub 250, which was probably too ambitious, but I was super, super fit. And then I sprained my ankle like 2 weeks out, pretty bad, and decided to pull out of the race because it wasn't 100%. I wasn't running on it. I lost fitness. The ankle was still messed up. It was still hurting running and walking around. And so I pulled out, basically signed up right away I pulled out about a week before. I was like, I'm not going to do this. And I immediately signed up for Eugene Marathon, which was April 28th. That was my next thing. I was going to recover and then train for that. It took me almost a full month to get running again consistently. In that time, I did all bike workouts. So I did the best I could, a lot of easy biking, and then a few really hard bike workouts a week, which sucked. I had never really biked, so it took me a while to even learn how to put an effort on the bike. But I did them and I kept some fitness. This is where I kind of go from like, okay, getting into running before the first marathon. It was like phase one, like pre-obsession. And then like peak obsession, I would say, was after that first marathon where I was training so hard. I was going out, I was putting down, I was making insane progress. Running was all I thought about. Now I can't do my obsession. I'm not running. And so I go into this interesting mode where I'm biking and I start lifting again a lot. That first, like, after that first marathon prep, in this phase two, before I got hurt, I didn't really lift at all. All I did was run, and I lifted like maybe once, like light a week, but I just didn't give a shit. All I cared about was getting faster. And so I was getting skinny. I was getting frail. I got down to under 200 pounds for the first time in a long time, many years. And it was great though. Like I wasn't complaining about it. I loved being fast. I loved the progress. I liked being lean. But like I said, I was biking. I was lifting every day. I started to feel fuller and feel good, honestly. I felt very fit. Then when I started running again in preparation for Eugene in Oregon, I didn't stop lifting. I kept lifting basically every night. It's pretty light what I was doing. I was doing like 45 minutes a night. I would do basically what I'm doing now is the cycle of basically push, pull, and then like a full body split. Push, pull, full body, push, pull, full body, and like a rest day. Usually take off on a day that I have a really long hard run or the day after that. I'll also train abs every single day required. I think that is huge for running because it does require so much core strength when you're going long distance. Specifically, 3 exercises I'll do with abs. And I can talk more about lifting, but hanging leg raises, GHD sit-ups, which are like those decline sit-ups. I've talked about those. I'm addicted to those. And I'll do like rope crunches. Those kind of are my 3 staples. As I started to prep for Eugene, what was going on was I was getting bigger. Like I put on a lot more muscle. I'm way bigger now than I was in January when I was in this Austin Marathon prep. And I kind of liked it. I liked the way I felt. I looked like a freaking freak athlete I looked the best I've ever looked. I felt the best I've ever felt. I was lean, but strong and fast. And I don't know. I didn't want to stop lifting. And what happened was I was a little slower. I think I'm less fit now in terms of running than I was before that Austin Marathon, slightly. I'm still very fit, even though I'm a little heavier. I weighed in about 210 pounds before this Toronto Marathon. Regardless, let's get into Toronto, which is what this video is all about. I chose this race because, well, what happened was I was supposed to run Eugene, Oregon with a few friends who ended up dropping off. So it just didn't make sense for me to travel to Oregon all alone. I wasn't like I was doing a big production with content or anything. It was just me going alone. And it was expensive and tough to get there. And I just didn't want to do it. Long travel. And so then it was, okay, let me pick a marathon for May 5th. And I was between Orange County, Long Island, and Toronto. And I chose Toronto because it was close and it was still a great course, which is like net downhill. That's why I did it. So I literally booked a flight, and I chose this like 5 days out, by the way. I just wasn't sure. I couldn't decide. I was also moving. I went to Spain for the week before that. There was just all this shit. So I chose it very late, but I knew I was going to do a marathon on May 5th, no matter what. That was 100% in my mind. And so I chose Toronto, and I literally flew in Saturday morning and then ran the race Sunday morning and then flew back Sunday night, which I don't recommend. You should get there a day. I think it's fine if you leave the same day. It doesn't feel the best, but like I would get there 2 days before. That way you can get really good sleep the 2 nights before the marathon, because the night before your sleep is very unpredictable. The 2 nights before will help you a lot. I'll start, I guess, with what's interesting is my last big workout before this marathon. Like I said, I was not as fit as I was before. I didn't have as much data. My runs were a little all over the place this prep, even though I still pounded, 50-mile weeks. And so my last big workout was this test workout that last big workout, what it essentially was 3 sets of 10K at marathon pace. And that total average pace kind of gives you an idea of, are you in sub 3 shape? If you can be under a sub 3 pace for that, which is under 650 minutes per mile. And so my 3 sets were, okay, so it was a 1.5 mile warm up. And then my first set for that workout was a 638 average pace. And then my second set was a 636 average pace. And then my third set was a 710 average pace. And I believe this total average pace was like a 649, which didn't make me the most confident. But to be fair, this day was extremely fucking hot. And I ran in the middle of the day at 2 p.m. And I think that's why my last set was so slow. The heat just destroyed me. I'm not used to running in the heat. I've trained, like I said, mostly in the winter this year. So it's a whole different beast. And so that's why I didn't think this was totally accurate, especially if I had good weather on a race day. But this was my last workout. This gave me some confidence, but even my coach was like, yeah, you're probably right at the 3 hour mark in terms of your fitness. And so, and like I said, I felt heavy. I 210 pounds. And yeah, that is one, a result of lifting. I'm probably carrying like 5 pounds more muscle than I did in January, but I'm also just have a little more fat. I just, my diet is not completely dialed. I want to make it more dialed. It's going to be more dialed now that I'm taking things more seriously. And when I say taking things more seriously, I never missed a workout. Like this last prep leading up to Toronto, I did every single workout to the fullest capacity and I hit almost all my paces every time. However, there were some of the last few long runs where I felt my weight like adding up to where I wasn't hitting all the paces perfectly. Like I said, I still never missed anything. I still tried to treat it like a professional. Now let's get into nutrition. 2 days out, I carb loaded between like 600 to 800 carbs the last 2 days. I also pounded water and pounded electrolytes, probably had 4 to 5 electrolyte packets per day. It's like 5,000 milligrams of sodium per day. Maybe that's not right for you. I just think for me, I'm a big dude. And my first marathon, I think I underhydrated and I was literally hypothermic after. Like my hands were freezing. I'll put up a picture for like 45 minutes after the race. And so I wanted to avoid that and just obviously be hydrated in general. So 2 days out, that's what I was doing. I was eating a bunch of stuff, trying to avoid fruits and fiber and veggies because that stuff can fuck up your stomach. And trying to sleep. I honestly slept terribly the last 3 nights before the race. I think I got 4 to 5 hours per night for just, I don't know. I couldn't sleep. I've been not having the best sleep. And so I slept terribly, but I'm not someone who needs sleep in general in life. I kind of can function really well without a lot of sleep, I think, especially with the running. The running gives me a lot of energy. And I'm not saying I recommend not sleeping. I'm just saying I could survive without it. And I did. I ran a good marathon, a great marathon on very low sleep, honestly. And so, like, I'll try to put up my sleep hours from the few nights before, right up here. They weren't great, but like I said, I was pretty dialed with the nutrition, and it's tough because, like I said, I was already feeling heavy, but I had to eat a lot of carbs, and I was bloated. I was just, oh, you're like carrot. You want to feel like that. You want to feel slightly bloated. You want to feel like your body is like buzzing from the carbs. You want to feel like you're like have this this like tingling to go and run and rip, and I definitely got to that point both days where you literally are like you're so much energy, you're ready to go. You just want to fill your glycogen stores, fill them up as much as you can. And so yeah, I was probably up to 700 800 carbs those 2 days before. The morning of, I posted this on Twitter, the kind of stuff I ate. I had my goal was pretty simple: have around 200 carbs about 3 hours before the race. So get up at 4:30. The race was 7:30. Start eating. I had iced coffee right away so I could go to the bathroom. This is another big thing. Try to go to the bathroom, number two, twice before the run. I've always done that. Like, you have to go twice. So I pooped right when I woke up and then right at the race in the porta potty. It's kind of gross, but fucking glad I did. So what I ate, to go back, I had English muffin with peanut butter, some mango juice, some orange juice, some banana, some fruits, some oatmeal, Gushers, and then I think at 2 good water bottles with like 3,000 milligrams of salt. When I say salt, I just mean like the electrolyte packets that the ones I use have 1,000 milligrams of salt. I use this one called Zero something. I'll post a picture, but it's the same as Element basically. It's just they have it at Wegmans. I normally would be more dialed with this. Like I said, I was a little less dialed because I signed up for this last minute. I didn't have normally I would take a lot of the scratch stuff, scratch gummies and scratch bars, but I just didn't. I was a little more raw with this. I'm going to go and rip solo mission to Toronto. I did meet some awesome people there though. Matt and Fod from 535 Toronto, absolute legends who took care of me and showed me around and let me hang out at their studio. They're awesome. And I also hung out with this amazing girl named Sherry, who's a great writer. Really big on Twitter, and she's awesome. And one other awesome guy at dinner, I'm just forgetting his name. Here was basically my plan, my pacing plan, and my mental plan for the race. It was, okay, I know I have to be under 650 average pace to be at a sub 3. So, okay, start close to 650, even 7, because I know my legs take a while to warm up, usually like 3 miles. In retrospect, I probably should have ran a bit more before the race. I only had time and I only really didn't really think about it. I did a few like back and forths before the start, but that was it. Probably should have done a little bit more to warm up. But I know my legs take a bit to warm up. So that's why it's okay starting slow, I think, and saving the energy for later. But in reality, that rarely happens, I think. And a lot of people go out fast because you feel good. I honestly didn't feel that good. I felt like my legs were heavy going to the race. I walked a lot, I think, the few days before that. I walked like, I think, at least 15,000 steps the day before and like 25,000 steps like 2 days before that. It wasn't good. You should be staying off your feet before a marathon. I think I could have felt a little more fresh. But regardless, my plan was, okay, go in and there was a lot of hills in this race. And one thing I did wrong is I kind of misread the elevation map where I thought the hills were coming. I thought a big downhill was coming later than it was. And I actually kind of experienced it earlier and just kind of mentally didn't process it. Yeah, that's important. Know you have the right elevation map because the elevation does matter a lot. You need to know how to pace yourself. You need to not go too hard on the downhills or else you'll smoke your legs, and not too hard on the uphills either. You have to understand it's a game and you have to control your effort. But basically, the plan was start at 650 and work downwards. Negative split is I think, the goal. Most people want to negative split their races. I didn't this time really at all. Mine were basically even. I'm going to throw the paces up here. My paces, if you look at the grade adjusted pace, which is like what your pace is minus the elevation, it was very consistent around around 640, I'd say, a little lower. It was actually my average pace up until mile like 12 or 13 was like 632, which was great. And that was when I was actually considering going for a 250 marathon. I was like, if I can get under a 630 average pace, I can be a 250, which would be crazy. I didn't have that in me that day. But regardless, my pace was pretty much even until I got to around mile 20. And then I started to hit something where, like I said, I got to, it was really at mile 23, honestly. Got up to like 640. It got up to 641 and then 643, 635. I had a good mile 22, but then 652, 657, 712, 720, and then a sprint at the end, 620. That is not totally ideal, but it wasn't bad. Considering the hills in the beginning, I took advantage of some of those downhills at the start and got some good paces on them. Got like a 622 mile on this 140 foot downhill mile. There was a 104 foot downhill mile. I got 617 pace. So, I took good advantage. I didn't go too hard, but I did take advantage of them, and I controlled myself on the uphills as well. There was 1 mile was a 99 foot elevation incline, and I had a grade adjusted pace of 633, which is pretty good. So that means my actual pace was 706, but if you take out the elevation, 633. Take advantage of the hills, but try to negative split. Like I said, it didn't work out that way, but that's okay. How I think of a marathon is you need to be right at this effort line. And I'm not going to use the technical words here because I'm not a technical runner, but there's this line of effort and you do not want to push past that. You should not be heavy breathing the first half of a marathon. You should be in control of your breath, not going over this effort line. There's a line right between pushing and not pushing. And that is exactly where you need to be, where it's just you're running. You're not jogging, you are running. And it's right around this like 160 heart rate where I sat at for basically the first 20 miles was around 160 heart rate. Some other quick tips, like you want to make sure you're running the shortest distance. So someone told me this, my friend Noah actually recommended a good video by this guy Floberg, recap of his latest Boston Marathon, which for some reason is off YouTube now. When you have a corner, like try to stay as tight to the corner as you can. And when you have a curve in the race, a lot of people like run the curve versus you can usually just run the diagonal and it's shorter. Those little things I think do add up. Other than that, there's like other small things, pushing through your shoes, actually like using the carbon plates as little trampolines. I like to think about that. I felt extremely good up until I'd say mile 19. You could see I was doing mile 15, 625. Then I hit mile 16, 652. I think that one got messed up with a bridge, but regardless, mile 17, 627, mile 18, 626. I was feeling good. And I was still like debating, do I go faster? But I started to just feel my legs light up a bit. And there's a game you have to play because early in the marathon, you'll feel like your legs are sore, like 6, 8, and you know that you can push through that because you have experience and you felt it go away before. But then you get later in the race and there is a point where your legs are that heavy and it doesn't go away. And I hit that, like I said, around mile 20. And so in that point, if you are pushing further, you're risking completely bonking and hitting the wall and your legs dying. And so that was like the biggest thing. I didn't want to risk that. I didn't want to drop to like an 8-9 minute pace because then I wouldn't have hit my goal. And so that's like the mental game you have to play is like, is this soreness permanent or is it temporary? That's why the marathon is so great, is because it's a 3-hour mind game with yourself. I really hit the dark place, like I said, around mile, I'd say 19, where my pace started to slip from 626 to 640, 641, 643. I'm like, I have to hold this pace or I'm not going to get my goal, or I'm not going to do well. There's like, it's one of these things that is very hard to teach and put into words how you get through that time. But for me, it's like finding ways to just completely turn my brain off, let myself just. So, okay, a lot of this is experience. I've been running these long 2-3 hour runs every Sunday. And so the time for me wasn't anything new anymore. My first marathon, it was a totally weird new experience because I've never ran that long. So it was almost like a spiritual event. It was wild. Versus this time, I've been on my feet this long dozen plus times, maybe 20 plus times. So the time thing for me was like normal, but the effort was a lot. And so for me, it was just finding ways to distract my mind to let the miles tick by, because they did freaking tick by, even the hard ones. They just went doop, 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 because I would, and what I would do is you really have to romanticize the moment you're in. You have to romanticize that you are this athlete out here giving everything you have, and one day you won't be able to do this. That's one thing I do. I also tend to just look at my shoes a lot and like look down, just look at my shoes and appreciate how beautiful it is that I'm moving. I haven't stopped moving. I didn't stop moving once this whole marathon. I ran the entire time. And that is an incredible thing that I've only done literally for this and my other marathon and some training runs. A lot of training runs, I'll stop for a second for whatever. To run for 3 hours straight is an incredible thing. Romanticize the pain you're in, romanticize the effort you're giving, and how special it is to be able to do that. That helps a lot. And then I start thinking in time. I start thinking when I have an hour left, when I have an hour and a half left, when I'm halfway done. In terms of like the mental split of the race, I think mentally I'm like, okay, get from mile 1 to half, 1 to 13. That's, halfway done. And then 13 to 20, and then 20 to 26. That's kind of how I mentally broke up the race. And if you look at my paces, that's kind of how it went too. Like mile 1 to 13 were great. 13 to 20 were good, but there was a little bit of fight in there. And then 20 to 26 was just a dogfight trying to hold on. I knew I wasn't going to negative split. So I was just holding on. You could see mile 23, 652, mile 24, 657, then 712, and then 720. I was just hold on, stay as much under like 730 as you can. But man, those were hard. And if you look at my heart rate, it was up there. My heart rate was high 180s for those last like 6 miles. I was definitely pushing. And it was like around 180 for most of it. But I did get up there close to 190, which is a lot. Those last 6 miles were really hard. But it was really hard, but it was, to be fair, it was doable. And I wish I went a little harder. I wish I gave a little more. I think I had a tiny bit more to give. I think I could have kicked. So I ran the last 0.36 miles of this at 621 pace. I wish I did that maybe for a little bit longer, maybe the last full mile or the last half mile. I think I had it in me. But it's tough because when you're going that fast, you don't know I don't think you know how long you can hold that for without dying. Yeah, that's really the race breakdown. I know I jumped a bit all over it, but like I said, it went great. I surprised myself. I thought I was going to be much closer, like at the 3-hour mark. It's honestly a pretty big difference. That's 649 pace versus 639 pace, which is what I did. Pretty big difference. So I surprised myself and I was happy. It's funny because in the moment, even though I'm checking my watch a lot, I tend to do that way too much. I didn't even really realize what paces I was running. Like I knew, but I got notified after every mile, but like I wasn't checking. So I definitely ran faster than I expected. The downhills definitely helped me. The weather helped me. It was a cool, misty day. And now it's what's next. Now I'm trying to decide, what do I go after now? I could just keep going in the marathon and cut some weight and go faster. And I think I'd get down to a 2:45 marathon, 10 minutes faster. And probably by the fall, I bet I could do that. Maybe sooner. Well, there's not really any good marathons until the fall. But now I'm thinking of other stuff as well. I'm thinking of, do I run longer distance, an ultra, 50 miles, 100 miles? Do I run and try to be the fastest marathoner at 200 pounds? That was kind of an initial goal I had. I think the record for that, I'm trying to find it out. I think it's like low 230s. That's really the race. I know I hope this explanation was helpful. It was a great race. Like I said, it was pretty smooth up until mile like 18, 19, 20, and then I was just holding on for dear life. And I'm proud of myself. I think I'm good in the dark place. It's why I was able to hold on for so long. I will say, doing a smaller marathon, I don't know if I recommend. This one, I don't know how many people it had. I can look it up, but I was running alone for almost the whole time. And this course, it was very tight. I don't know if I totally recommend doing this one because it's like the second, there's a different Toronto Marathon, which is bigger. This was smaller. And the second half of the race was on this tight path by the water. You were like sharing it with people running a 10K. I just wasn't a fan of it. I didn't really know where to go for a lot of it. I was kind of just like hoping I was going the right way because I was staying on this path. But there was a time where I literally went the wrong way and someone like ran into me from a different race, which is like terrible and shouldn't happen. If you have any other questions, feel free to leave a comment or DM me and I'll answer them. But sign up for a marathon. You will surprise yourself. You will push yourself and you will get an opportunity to literally turn off the entire world for 3 hours. I recommend putting your phone somewhere else, bag checking your phone and seeing what you're made of, seeing what you're capable of. That is an extremely special experience to just, you have nothing else to do during that time except give everything you have. When else do you get to do that? That's why a marathon is so special, is because it is the most pure encapsulation of the human experience in such a short amount of time, where there is no reason, there is nothing distracting you, and all that matters is the effort you're putting in. And I think that's beautiful. And so, great second marathon. I'm pumped. I got my fire back to run and train like a pro athlete. I don't know what I'm going to do next, but I'm going to go and get the fuck after it. That's it. Talk to you later.